Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Latara.
Greetings, les citizens.
And we're going to do Edge of Tomorrow, or as the every sort of place on the internet now has it listed as, is Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow. Or even worse than that, my Blu-ray of this, right, Live, Die, Repeat, which is annoying enough that they tried to change the title, but what really upsets me about that front cover, and not just the fact that they've got the age logos in the middle instead of the bottom like they usually do, is that at the bottom they have Cruise, then / Blunt / Edge of Tomorrow. Look, that's two actor surnames and then the actual name of the movie. Why is it give slashes in it?
All of the promotional part of this movie is just the worst. It's just garbage.
Yes, I don't even understand. And you sent me the original trailer, and I'd forgotten the original trailer until the music kicked in, and then it brought back all these memories. Because I go to the movies often enough that I remember getting the trailer a lot. And like, as soon as
Does the trailer look bad? Like, it looks like it's a bad movie.
Yeah, as soon as that robotic kind of voice in the song kicks in, I was like, oh, I do remember this trailer. I remember this playing like every time I went for like 3 months.
No, like that. It was the opposite for me. Like the movie when I first saw the trailer, it was maybe a couple weeks before the movie was released. And I went to the movies a lot. Like, ever at this time, I went to the movies probably twice a week. And I had seen the poster walking into the theater, and I'm going, what's that? And then the trailer came on. I'm like, oh, it's coming out in like 3 weeks. Yep. It was almost like the studio didn't want it to be advertised, probably because they hated on the name that they settled on.
Yeah, it's just a weird one. So obviously it's a sci-fi
movie. The trailer is like also it's kind of promoting it as a love story. It doesn't look too dissimilar from, if you're just looking at it from the trailer and trying to figure out what the plot is, it doesn't seem too dissimilar to Oblivion, which was a Tom Cruise movie that came out only a year before and did not do very well. I
was getting more overly the serious, gritty war thing from the trailer, but regardless,
I got a lot of like love story vibes from it that I did not care for, especially after you watch the trailer after watching the movie.
Anyway, if I could actually intro the show properly now, this is a sci-fi movie podcast. Hey, I tried like 5 sentences ago, and you steamrolled over me.
Well, you brought up this huge point before the intro of the show. This is not on me.
Yes, but I tried to divert back, and then you were like, no, we're going to go deep with this one first. And then, okay, sci-fi movie podcast.
I had things to say.
We're talking about sci-fi movie. Tara's got things to say. She's going to say things later in the show. Look forward to it. Highlight of your week. We will start spoiler free as we always do. As we were saying, we're here to talk about Edge of Tomorrow, or Live, Die, Repeat, or the book that it's based on, All You Need Is Kill, which I do actually like that title. I think that title is better than the 2 movie titles.
I think if they stuck with Live, Die, Repeat from the beginning, I would have been okay with it.
I think All You Need Is Kill sounds intriguing because it doesn't, like, it's like, oh, that's weird. What does that mean?
It doesn't. Yeah, but Live, Die, Repeat actually sets up what the movie is. Like, it's a pretty decent title. Unfortunately, they used it as a tagline.
You don't have to have a title that, like Silence of the Lambs doesn't sell what Silence of the Lambs is. Like, it's just, but it has
but
meaning.
When you watch the movie, like, it does come up.
Yeah, well,
Edge of Tomorrow, like, okay, yeah.
We're not arguing Edge of Tomorrow, though. We're arguing All You Need Is Kill, and All You Need Is Kill does make sense once you start watching the movie because they start killing to reset. Like, it actually becomes a factor. It makes sense.
I don't know. It seems too. I don't know.
Not every movie has to be snakes on a plane, where you clearly know from the title what it is. What's that movie about? I think it's got snakes on a plane.
Maybe they're spies on Air Force One, or...
Now, don't get me wrong, Edge of Tomorrow means basically nothing, and it's really generic sounding, right? But
well, no, it sounds like, especially with the trailer, like Edge of Tomorrow sounds like a Nicholas Sparks novel or something that had been... or whatever those like romantic movies.
Yeah, I mean, it means nothing. It sounds generic. Like, because sometimes I stop and think about this, and I think about like, okay, classic movies that are well regarded, right? Surely some of them have titles that don't really mean much, but we just know them as that movie, so we don't really think about it, right? And I started trying to think of examples in my head, and I'm like, no, every single one I can think of, I can kind of justify it and say, no, it relates to this, or it means that, or at the very least, it has a thematic link to what the movie's doing. Edge of Tomorrow, like, doesn't really mean it. I mean, Live, Die, Repeat, I'll give you, is better in the sense that it actually describes the movie at least, but I don't necessarily like a title just to describe the movie. I like something a bit more showy, you know?
Okay.
I guess.
But we're all in agreement that Edge of Tomorrow is terrible.
Yeah, Edge of Tomorrow is not a good title.
Name.
Yeah, it's not a good title.
And the other reason I don't like Live, Die, Repeat as the alternative title now, like even if it was released with that title originally, it's just because the sequel is tentatively called Live, Die, Repeat and Repeat or something. And that's just the worst. I hope they don't stick with that name.
If they're going to stick with the sequel just being based off that title, it should just be called Repeat, Repeat, Repeat or something like that. Just go full into
call
it.
Edge of Tomorrow too. I mean, you've already stuck to it. You know, just go with the original title.
It's a shame the day after tomorrow's already been taken, because that might be perfect.
Maybe, yeah.
Because we're after tomorrow. So the reason why we're doing this actually is because this movie is actually set in 2020. So, yes, Tara pointed that out, and then it was like, okay, well, I guess we have to do it this year. It makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think there's like an actual day. I think it's just vague 2020, because it starts off in 2015. But then it's like 5 years later.
Yeah, it starts off with the news reports of like how the aliens landed and what's been going on in the last 5 years. I completely forgot Brendan Gleeson was in this, so when he just popped up on the TV screen at the start, I was like, Brendan Gleeson's in this? What?
Really?
Yeah. All of a sudden, there's this Irish like major. No, he's not major. He's a general.
He's so intimidating. He's general.
Yeah, Tom Cruise is a major, but he's a major kind of in name only, as we kind of find out. So the premise of Edge of Tomorrow, just in case you aren't here, and this is a spoiler-free section, so I'll give you a sort of brief sort of premise of the movie. Think Groundhog Day, think Happy Death Day, which is obviously the one that came after this. Is a plot about Tom Cruise reliving the same day over and over again every time he dies. In this, it's kind of like a D-Day, but more like the last kind of hurrah, where the aliens that have landed on Earth have taken over almost all of Europe. They're at the edge of France. They're trying to come to England and the UK. So the front is like the edge of France, and they're going to launch, and Tom Cruise is a bit of a coward, and he is kind of, basically forced into actually going on the front line with everyone, and he's not prepared for that. He's never been trained for combat, but he does get I'll just say infected with something that means that every time he dies, the day resets. He goes back to when he wakes up, and it goes from there. It's a Groundhog Day style movie in that sense. So I'll just leave it there. Emily Blunt's, of course, the other big main character. She also plays another soldier in the movie. They all have these sort of gunner suits, these big sort of not mech suits, but kind of exosuits. That's what they're called.
Yeah, they're like an exoskeleton. They're not quite Starship Troopers, but they're clearly inspired by.
They're bulkier than Starship Troopers. I mean, the helmet looks Starship Troopers-y, but the actual suit felt. This was before this, but the actual suit is way closer to something like the thing that Matt Damon gets in Elysium.
Yeah, I was thinking Elysium too.
Yeah.
But I don't like thinking about that movie.
This is based on like a manga, and I think these types of suits are really common in Japanese fiction, like their animes and their mangas and all that. No,
I'll take your word for it.
And I don't make it sound dismissive there, but I'm not a big anime guy, so I just they all like their mechs and their exosuits and their Gundams and their.
From the 2 video games I attempted to play, yes.
Hey, just be happy. I bet the haircuts in the original comic manga, I bet they were a lot more like Final Fantasy looking with all the sharp edges.
There's a lot of spikes.
Yeah. And I bet Tom Cruise, I almost imagine that Tom Cruise is the sort of crazy bastard who wanted to have the weird haircut, and the studio went, no, look, you're Tom Cruise,
we draw the line.
and we let you away with a lot because you're Tom Cruise, but no. You're not doing that.
Yeah, apparently he had a lot of say in this movie. And the only thing that's really anime to me is just Emily Blunt's sword.
Yeah, her sword's ridiculous.
Giant, like Final Fantasy looking sword.
Yeah, that stupid Buster sword. I hate the damn thing. But yeah, she's referred to. She's got kind of a sort of like a
the best call name of all time.
Well, it's not her call name. It's more her like. Her mystique, because basically she's this war hero who did really well in this like first early big battle. So she's
the Angel of Verdun,
Yes, but she became known to the people as the Full Metal Bitch. We see that like, spray painted because she's used as like the campaign, like the recruitment campaign kind of advertising like posters, and people are like spray painting Full Metal Bitch on the poster.
I would do anything for that nickname.
it's a great nickname. It's great.
It's so good.
She doesn't like it. She actually punches someone at one point for going to call her, and I'm like, why would you not be happy about this? This is a great nickname.
Well, I mean, once we learn her backstory, I think it makes sense.
Sure. I don't know. I feel like Full Metal Bitch. Like, that sounds cool enough to outstrip any reason why you might not like it.
Angel Verdun is also a really good one.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got Bill Paxton in there, the late great Bill Paxton. He's like this drill sergeant on the base the day before they deploy, who is very mean to Tom Cruise, I'll just say. And so we have him. We actually have, this is a random one you won't get, but there's an actor from Legends of Tomorrow in here who I didn't know was in this movie. This was before that show happened, but Jackson's in here. He's one of the troops that happened to be there. Other than that, there's actually, what's funny is that when I was looking, I put this into my letterbox earlier, and there's two actors in this that were in Paddington 2. Obviously, Brendan Gleeson is one of them, right?
Brendan Gleeson.
Yeah. But the other one, the guy who, the sort of engineer dude who Emily Blunt's worked with before, that she goes to take Cruise to, he was in Paddington 2 as well, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's two Paddington 2 actors in this.
I was wondering what, I couldn't place him, but he has such a unique face.
Yeah.
Was he in Predestination?
Oh, I don't know. Do you want me to have a quick check?
Maybe it's just because he's kind of got that that speech thing, like the guy in Predestination does.
It wasn't Predestination. He was the guy who was like giving the jobs out in this business suit.
Yeah,
that was him. He had short hair. You're right. No, he was there.
Well, that's probably the last thing I saw him in, unless I watched Paddington 2 before then, or after that.
Oh, he was in Lara Croft Tomb Raider in 2001. Highlight of his career, no doubt. Oh dear. But yeah, so yeah, so there's an interesting cast. Obviously, you got Cruise and Emily Blunt at the center of it. So that's the gist of the movie. I mean, it's pretty obvious if you've seen like any of our countdowns for the last decade, certainly for one of us anyway. But I'll ask Tara the question because it is the format of the show. Tara, how do you feel about Edge of Repeat?
I think this movie's exceptional. It's so good. Every time I watch it, it climbs a little bit higher. If I had made my best of list after watching it like recently, it would have been much higher, I think. I love this movie. It's so fun. It's such a formula that works.
There wasn't much higher to go. It was in your top 10.
It was in my top 10 for
the decade.
For the decade, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like number 15.
No, it's not. I'm editing it right now. It's in the top 10. And the only reason why I'm comfortable saying that right now is that I'm going to make sure that top 10 video, which should go up tomorrow, goes up before this. So I don't mind spoiling that, but it's in your top 10.
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't higher. Maybe it was too low on my science fiction movie list then of the decade.
I'm sure it was. Oh no, wait. I think you're right.
I'd have to watch this one in dread again.
No, in fact, it was number 14. Nah, you're right. I'm wrong. It must have been your top 10 in your sci-fi of the decade.
It definitely
list.
was.
Yeah, that must be what
I think it was like
of.
number 5 or something. My sci-fi, but yeah. Well, if I made the top 10 of the decade after today, I probably would have had it much higher. I'm pretty sure this movie's flawless.
I like it a lot.
With the exception of the title.
I think it's a great movie. I'm not going to go as far as flawless, and I certainly don't hold it in the same pedestal as you do. But I do like it a lot. I think it's a really solid, fun movie. It does a lot of really smart things. There's a couple of generic things that it does, feel a little bit, okay, whatever, taking the obvious, easy way out there. But it does so many things right, and so many like fun stuff. And I think it's got more of a sense of humor than the trailers would ever have given you an idea of, for sure.
Yeah. And it's a war movie that's like, it is a war movie, and it's also PG-13, which is odd when you think about all the death that you get to see in the movie. But really, everything happens. It's edited so quick, or it's all implied of what's happening to him, and there's not really any gore, with the exception of maybe one scene.
The first death maybe has a little gore, kind of, but after that,
kind of, but there's no real blood in it.
no, it just cuts away. It just
so...
yeah, it just cuts away whenever he dies. So it's not like you see that much. I think the movie's got a really good arc. The arc in these movies, it kind of always ends up being the same, essentially. This, Groundhog Day and Happy Death Day, all essentially boil down to the main character is kind of an asshole by the end of the movie because they've lived through all these days, and whatever they learn over the course of repeating that day ends up being a better person by the end. Now it's a bit more specific here because it's about how much of a coward he is and how much he sort of, you know, gains his courage and finds like purpose to fight and isn't just a complete sniveling little shithead. Like that is kind of what his arc is in this movie, and that's done very well. There's a couple of really key moments especially that I loved that I can't get to till spoilers, but there's some really great moments with that stuff.
It's so fun to watch Tom Cruise be bad at something in a movie too, you know, at least in the beginning, because normally he's always like the best, or maybe I'm just used to watching movies where he's the best, but like it's fun to see him be like just so out of his element and terrible at something, and he's really, really funny in this.
Oh, he is, yeah. Because some of the deaths are played for laughs. Like, some of the deaths are played for, like... Because this is the thing, it's very...
Because you don't have any gore, I think, is one of the points I was trying to get to.
But it's very video gamey, and not just because they've got all these suits on and they're shooting at aliens, but even just in the sense where... Because one of the key sort of plot devices in the movie is the idea that, you know, in between the versions of the day that we're seeing, he's been repeating over and over again. So there's points where he's in the battle scenes, and he's memorized where all the aliens pop out, so he can just keep blasting them. And it's not actually skill. This is the great thing. One of the things I love about this movie is that he gets really good at doing that because he's memorized where they're going to pop out, but that's actually before he learns to fight for real, because then he tries to actually train for real and he's shit at it because because then he's in like a random training program with these big cloth things that he used to like mimic the alien movement, and he's shit at it. He can't do it. He's getting hit all over the place. But I love it because I think there are certain video games where you can either be good at it or you're just good at memorizing exactly where everything's going to happen, so you can react accordingly. So I got that vibe in the movie.
I was going to make that point, but you already made it, so...
Oh, well, there you go. So, no, that stuff's good. Direction's pretty solid. It's one of those things where the director here, Doug Liman, he did the first Bourne movie, and he did another one or two things. Interestingly, one of the writers on this was Christopher McQuarrie, who's been doing the last few Mission Impossibles. So it's one of Cruise's confidants, I suppose. We'll call him.
Doug Liman does a lot of work with Cruise too, right? Like, doesn't he did Jack Reacher?
He did do Swingers. No, wasn't that McQuarrie? I could have sworn that was McQuarrie. Oh,
maybe that's McQuarrie. Yeah.
I
think I'm just mixing the Cruise directors.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm just you're right. It's Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat is the the working title right now.
Wash, condition, repeat.
Yeah, I mean, he did Jumper, which like looked kind of rough.
I saw parts of that movie, but I didn't watch the whole thing. It wasn't really for me.
Yeah,
I guess it is sci-fi, huh?
Doug Liman is a. Doug Liman's a very workman director, and I don't think I'm ever going to be excited for a movie because he's attached to it. I feel like he, as a director, like can make a good movie, but he's not a name I get excited about.
I'm not a big Bourne Identity fan.
Well, I think the second two Bourne movies are way better than the first one. I think they got better with a new director.
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, I saw it much later, and I think I already had decided I'm more of a Mission Impossible person. Go Ethan Hunt over Matt Damon as an action star. Like, I think I just couldn't handle that for a little while, and I just didn't go. I don't know. Like, it wouldn't click in my head. Like, Matt Damon is supposed to be a doofus when I watch him on screen.
Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get to the spoilers?
I think this might be my favorite Tom Cruise movie.
Bold.
And performance.
Okay. I don't know what my favorite Tom Cruise movie is. It maybe Ghost Protocol.
Yeah. Those are good and they are fun. But I just think he rocks it in this movie. He's so good. He's not
Oh
like
no! Wait, hold on.
unlikable in the beginning.
Hold on. No. I forgot. Collateral's my favorite Tom Cruise movie. Not even a question. Apologies for that mistake.
I mean, yeah, Collateral is really good. Is that Mann? Is that Michael Mann?
That's Michael Mann. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really good. And he also does not play to type in that movie, which is another reason why I think it's so intriguing. But
in fact, that's why
I think he kills it in this movie. I think he's just from beginning to end. He's never not likable, but you still enjoy watching him die.
I think that's why I think I like the performance in Collateral, is because he's really good as a villain. I'd say, I don't know if it's my next favorite of his movies, but I think his next best performance is probably Eyes Wide Shut.
I actually haven't seen that one, which is
that's Kubrick.
Hard thing for me to admit. Yeah, I know.
Kubrick, man.
I rented it actually. It's ready to go for me to watch, but I haven't watched it yet. Jerry Maguire's up there for me too. I love Jerry Maguire.
I ain't seen it, so I can't comment. But yeah, no, I mean he's good in this. He's Tom Cruise. Like, Tom Cruise is such a dependable actor. I feel like sometimes he does suffer from just playing type because he's just playing Tom Cruise.
He doesn't always, he doesn't always nail it. I mean, he always gives it his all. But like The Mummy, he was so miscast.
Yeah, he really was. Then again, that was not even that was not even in the top 5 of the problems of that movie. But yeah, no, that's true.
But well, actually, it might have been one of the top problems of the film because it was really distracting.
The first problem with that movie is that it was a really bad remake of American Werewolf in London. Number 2.
Yeah, I mean, that was always my number 1 complaint, actually.
Yeah, is that it tried to be a horror movie version of the 1999 Mummy, which just doesn't work. You either have to be the fun globetrotting adventure Indiana Jones movie, or you're the horror movie. You can't be both.
I do like that he and Emily Blunt, like, there is a love story there, but Emily Blunt's, like, because of the events that she goes through, like, it's just like such an unusual love story, and it's not. She's more like Furiosa, She's not like damsel in distress who just falls for Tom Cruise because he's Tom Cruise. Like I really like their relationship. It's almost like a I don't know how else to put it, but like a work wife relationship, work husband, work wife. Just because of proximity, but there's always a side that's platonic. I mean, it's an unusual love story, but it works really well for me in the film.
I'm actually going to disagree here. This is one of my things that I don't like that much. I mean, not all of it. There's parts of it that I do like. There's a moment, in the third act that I would have happily cut out. I didn't need it. I rolled my eyes in the theater. There's one joke
that I don't like.
I rolled my eyes in the
played for laughs.
I rolled my eyes in the theater when it happened. I rolled my eyes again watching it this time. I like. This is the thing. I wish it was completely one-sided, because I completely get why he kind of has feelings for her. Because one of the big things that happens in the movie is that because he's spending time with her every day, and then he keeps seeing her die, he's kind of like grown attached to her, and it's hard for him to bear as time goes on and seeing her die. It makes sense to me why he's growing something for her. Maybe not necessarily romantic love, but something. It makes sense why he feels passionate in some way, or why he feels intense in some way towards her. She should not feel almost anything. She should be no-selling everything, because she's not remembering any of this shit. And if I have a complaint about the movie, outside of one other sort of thing I want to sort of pick apart a little bit towards the ending, but I'll have to wait to spoilers for that, obviously. But if I have one complaint, is that there's a few too many times in this movie where I feel like technically she doesn't remember things from the previous days, because she can, right? It's only him that's resetting. But I feel like the movie's having its cake and eating it too, because her reactions sometimes play as if she does, and it kind of like, it takes me out of it for a second, where I'm like, you're trying to cheat here. Because even though she can't remember it, you're working under the assumption that because the audience knows it, we're taking her reaction to mean a certain thing. And it feels like it's cheating a little bit, and it bugs me. It feels like it's just slightly betraying its role.
I understand, and I totally thought that the first time I watched it as well, but watching it again, like, that doesn't that goes away for me.
All right. Well, since the Tara's cats decide to stop terrorizing us, we will move out of spoilers for the movie. I will take this time, though, to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, Tyler Hess, and Talking Superman. They are all patrons at the $20 or above tier. But Tara, they don't have to be patrons at the $20 tier, do they? I just had something up the desk. You can do the Patreon bit while I look for this.
Sure. If you like our content and you want to support it, you could check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV, and donating as little as $1 per month will get you bonus episodes of The Ace. We have a back catalog, so check it out. Thank you.
That was no nonsense.
I'm the Full Metal bitch. I'm trying to earn it.
Yeah, all right. So movie starts. Like I said, with like the news reports and all that, explaining the invasion and yada yada yada. And
always good to see Wolf Blitzer.
Yeah, and there was like a full there's the idea that there was one battle that went well, the one that the Full Metal bitch. I should probably get her actual character name. Yeah,
Rita.
Yeah, there you go. So Tom Cruise was named Cage. Cage is not even ringing a bell. I think I ever noticed
What's
anyone.
his last name? Private Cage.
Yeah, okay.
Says here you're a deserter.
Okay, that sounds familiar. So he wakes up. He's in a helicopter on the way to somewhere in London to speak to Brendan Gleeson, who is the general, and. So we get the gist because we see during the news footage bits that Tom Cruise is like the marketing spokesperson to make the war sound like it's going well to the public, to recruit people.
Yeah, he's a PR guy.
So he's on TV, he's talking about, we built these super suits and everyone's going out and using those and everyone's doing well and everyone should sign up and go and defend the planet and so on and so on. And he comes in, he was all smug, he's all smiley, he's doing the nice man Tom Cruise routine, and Brendan Gleeson's like, okay, so we've got this idea, you've got to document it, from the ground, on the beach. He's like, wait, what? What was that? On the beach, with the actual fighting? Oh, no.
In front?
Yeah. And, one of my favorite moments here actually is when Cruise says hey, I do what I do so to avoid doing that, and he sort of laughs afterwards, like Brendan Gleeson will think that's funny and laugh along with him, and Brendan Gleeson just stone faced is like,
I think he's trying to talk like officer to officer.
Yeah.
We do this so that we don't have to be de-enlisted. That's what they're for.
Yeah, I get the impression that Brendan Gleeson's character, rose up through the ranks from the ground up and does not appreciate that attitude.
He's definitely seen some front lines before.
Yeah, he's earned his position, one might say. And Tom Cruise tries to slimily get his way out of it, and when he tries to leave and sort of, play the rank card, and at one point he's even like, wait, I'm the American military. You can't boss me around. And he's like, nope, I've spoken to your superior officer. Yeah, I'm in charge of you now.
Yeah, and he tries to blackmail him. He says, look, if you send me out there and we fail, it's all going to be on you. And I'll have footage and I'll tell everyone it's your fault. And I'm the PR guy, so, who are they going to believe? And he goes, okay, you won't be filming on the front tomorrow.
No, you'll just be out there fighting on the front tomorrow. Yeah, it's a very effective scene because the whole point of the scene is to set up just how much of a slimy weasel Tom Cruise is at the start of this movie. How Cage is just, he'll do anything to get out of actually fighting. That's not what he is. He's never been that. He was a marketing guy who sort of got enlisted because his marketing firm got.
Yeah, I didn't realize the first time I watched this that part of his marketing deal was to promote the mech suits, which is so funny for the scene that we get following where he actually goes out on the beach and he has no idea how they work.
Yeah, take the safety
he was
off.
marketing it as it's super easy, you just step in and you become a superhero basically, but it just sets it up so well.
Yeah, so he wakes up again, this time on the barracks, right, where they're all camped out, and he gets up and he's handcuffed, and Bill Paxton, Master Sergeant Farrell, comes over and he's leaning into his accent when he does this as well. It goes all, and again Tom Cruise tries to be Weasley, tries to kind of there's been a misunderstanding here and this and that, and so this is one of these things where all these movies have this this Groundhog Day and Happy Death Day, they all have here's the sequence of events when the person wakes up, because we're going to repeat this and show you how it's different each time, or show how he kind of recognizes each moment. I actually think out of these three examples, this is the one that does it the least, because after the first couple of times of him waking up, it always just skips it after that point, and you never really get to see it again.
Definitely.
So whereas like Happy Death Day, I'm sure you see that, like that walk out of the dorm room, you see that probably like 30 times in that movie. It's something ridiculous like that, and I'm not complaining. I love that movie. That movie does different things, but
in Groundhog Day, which is a straight up comedy, like always starts like that, but it always plays for a laugh every single time.
Oh, of course, yeah. Whereas this sort of bounces between, like, obviously the first couple of times are very serious, and then it starts to bring the laughs in a little bit with some of the you know what because I think once we get comfortable with the idea that he can't, you know, he'll keep coming back, that he's not going to die permanently. It's not, you know, after
it kind of neuters the whole idea of death, so it's easy. Like, it is a video game, although he still experiences the pain.
Yes. So now you get to laugh at it, because if they try to keep it serious, if they try to sort of sell that it was still horrific, even though he's still feeling the pain, in the context of a movie, after a couple of times where he resets, like the death loses the weight to us, so it makes sense to play it for laughs, because then we get to enjoy it in a different way that makes sense.
Most of the deaths are pretty quick, like they're usually gunshots or something.
Well, yeah, but
happens, and we see him wake up instantly.
But if you look at the first time he wakes up, it plays it as this horrifying, like, I just died moment.
Yeah, he wakes up screaming.
Right. But like, if you look at it later, it's treated much quicker, and it's played for almost a laugh. You know, when later on when Emily Blunt's just shooting him to kill him during the training montage, like, it's played more like he stops being scared when he's waking up and he's angry. He's pissed off because he just got shot in the face. Like, so it evolves sort of naturally throughout, because it wouldn't work if they tried to sell it as horrifying every time. We as an audience would reject it. After the second or third time, it would be boring. It wouldn't work. We wouldn't feel the effect of it, because deaths mean nothing in this movie. So it treats deaths as a mechanical plot device instead of an actual death anymore.
And we really have no sense to how many times he's repeated these scenarios, because it seems like, I mean, it's probably like close to 1,000 times or something. Like, who knows? Like, it has to be a lot, because these are very complicated, you know, battlefields that he's going through, and he is totally incompetent in the beginning.
Yeah, one of the things that it does really smartly, actually, is at various points, once he's working with Rita, is that there'll be moments where, like, you know, one of my favorite little sort of jokes here is because at this point it's already pulled the little trick where we realize that it's actually been a few more times than we've seen, because I think it's like the fourth one where, like, you know, like, because the first couple of times, of course, he ends up on the beach. The third one's kind of funny, because that's the one where they put tape over his mouth because he won't shut up about this crazy idea of looping time, right? They just think he's crazy because he tries to prove it to them that he knows things, and they just get sick of him and tape his mouth shut. And when he's on the battlefield, you know, he sees Rita and he tries to talk to her, and I think it's like the third or fourth time where you realize that this isn't the third or fourth time. There's been at least a handful in between the last one and this one.
Yeah, he's shooting things like without even looking at them.
Because it's when he goes to talk to her, and he's just kind of like going left behind me, you know, like he's just, you know, firing at things. So he's clearly tried to talk to her multiple times, and she eventually. But this is the great thing, is that what informs so well of how you sort of find out that she went through this at one point, right? Because that's one of the big reveals of the movie, is that he's the second person this has happened to. This happened to her before. Is what's great about it is he's trying to explain it to her, and he's still been a weasel. It's worth mentioning his plan at this point is to recruit her to rescue him because she's the badass. That is his plan right now, and because she sees him just predict where everything's coming. You see it in her eyes. Like, Emily Blunt lets you know that she's recognizing what this is, and she says, "When you wake up next time, come find me." And that kind of leads us into sort of that's kind of the end of Act One, I suppose, in a lot of ways, because that really sets up where we're going with the story, and you know, that partnership. Because what I was going to get at is that one of my favorite little things is that, so at this point it's already playing with the idea that sometimes we're skipping, and there's a little sort of joke montage after this where as he's trying to get, because he's technically in handcuffs, so he's imprisoned into being part of the troop, right? He's been told that or everybody, like when he walks in and meets people, like
they're told that he is some kind of a traitor.
Yeah.
Like he keeps saying that he's an officer and everyone calls him private. Like he's been demoted for being a traitor.
That said, he does smooth talk his way enough this time to not be handcuffed, at least. So he's on the squad, he's training with them, he's running with them, and he tries to make this little great escape moment to go see, because he has to sneak off basically to go see Rita. And
I think this is my favorite death.
This is a funny death. This is really good. He tries to time this sort of, because he's at the everyone gets push-ups because of him, and he tries to time this roll as two trucks are going by, so he can roll through underneath the truck and come out the other side. But he misjudges the timing and he just gets killed by the wheel. And it's one of these moments where this is one of the few times where it doesn't immediately cut to him waking up. It actually cuts to Bill Paxton reacting, where he's like, what was that stupid son of a bitch? Like,
do you think that's because he doesn't, like, maybe it's a slower death? Or is there a possibility that all of these are realities that exist?
What you're saying is that every single day is repeated is now a new timeline, and they all exist now. They all play out.
They're like 1,000 different realities where Tom Cruise kills himself.
I think that's really depressing, so I'm going to say no, it's more that he just took an extra couple of seconds to die.
Okay. I like that too.
Yeah, because it's not like a gunshot to the head. A truck's not designed to kill a person by running them over. It will kill them, but it's not like an efficient way of killing someone.
It is a really funny death. I think it's also because of the sound that he makes when he gets run over. It's like this high pitched sort of surprise.
Nah, it's really good. Even before I rewatched it today, because I hadn't seen this in theaters. I saw it once in theaters. I bought the Blu-ray because I liked it enough. When it was in a deal, so maybe a year later, and this is the first time I've watched it since. So this was fun revisiting.
I love Bill Paxton in this movie too. I love his line where Tom Cruise asks him if he's American. He goes, "No, sir, I'm from Kentucky." So he goes to meet Blunt, and he has to do the whole thing where she's like doing this weird like Tai Chi stuff in the middle of like the training field where all the big yoga.
Yeah, all the big metal like spinning like arms are, and he comes in and basically says, "Hey, it's happened to me. What happened to you? Like you told me to come see you when I woke up, blah blah." So, but one of the things I was getting to, I was trying to make this point for the last 5 minutes, but I wanted to build up to it, is that when she takes him to see this engineer dude, right, who obviously she confided in when she was going through this and convinced him that this was real, and he sort of does the science behind it and tries to figure out what's going on. When he comes in to meet him for the first time, he like puts his hand behind his back and says, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And I love that this confirms this is the first time this has happened, this part, because Tom, I don't have no idea, I've not done this part yet. Like I like that because it kind of like clearly establishes which part in the timeline for him this is.
Right. I think we see that a lot. Like we see the first time, usually we see the first time he attempts to go a little bit further and he makes it a little bit further, but then the parts that we get repeated are the parts where he dies. I'm going to disagree a little bit. I feel like after the first little bit of the movie, I feel like more often than not, we're actually seeing like further than what we actually like or where he's done. Because when they go to the farmhouse, it's kind of revealed that he's already done this multiple times. Because but that is a reveal.
Yeah, but it happens multiple times in the movie. It happens when he speaks to Rita in the battlefield. It happens a couple of times in between as well. Like it's kind of a running thing almost. That there's because when they're actually trying to go to the field, it's not just that we find out that we're at the farmhouse before. We find out that like they've tried to make this escape multiple times. He knows that the helicopter's going to do this. He knows where all the things are hiding in the field, and even before they get into the truck and everything, every part of the trip.
I just thought that was more of a surprise, like reveal thing, because we've been seeing him as he progresses, like gets a little bit further each time. So like when he gets to Rita the first time and she says, "Come find me when you wake up," when he gets to her and she's doing the yoga pose. And when she gets to the scientist, that's all like, okay, this is the first time I've made it this far. And then, I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering. And then when he gets to the farmhouse, it's like, oh, he's actually done this a lot.
No. I mean, what you're saying is what he's doing, but like, there's multiple times throughout the movie where it's definitely not the first time he's done the thing. Like, even the time where he goes under the truck, I'm not convinced that's the first time. Like, I almost think there might be a time in between where he gets that idea because you see the truck's going by.
he seems to be, like he counts down before he does the roll, because seemingly like he's done it before.
So he's clearly, at least, I mean, maybe he didn't try rolling the last time, but maybe he saw the trucks go by, so he intentionally got them to get push-ups here so he could try it, right? So so I think there's a lot of like times where it's implied there was a time or two in between to sort of explain how he got this far, kind of thing, right? And that's not a critique. It's actually smart, right? It's using the premise as a good plot device to really sell.
I like how vague it is to how many times he's repeated.
I think it has to be. I think absolutely. And because it is so video gamey, it's all believable that he is just memorizing everything, and that's why he's so good at certain things. I
mean, it could be 40 times, it could be 4,000 times. Like, it's really vague.
Really, yeah. You know, he because basically when he sees the engineer dude, and they're like, okay, we got this plan, and then he starts asking him if he's seen visions, because basically the alphas, right? So the regular aliens don't have this ability, but there's the alphas, the elites, if whatever you want to call them, who have the blue blood, or glow blue or whatever, and they have this ability where when they die, the day reverses, and that's why they always win, because they have this ability. They have a device that lets them have this ability, and he's supposed to get visions eventually of this device and where it is, so they can go destroy it and potentially sort of turn tide of the war. And that's the plan. And basically, so he's going to work on this, and he has to keep coming back to them every day and sort of quickly remind them, because I think we see it the next day when he comes back, and he has to quickly sort of catch her up to speed. Like, okay, look, you told me to come find you, blah blah blah. You did this before, and it's one of those things later on as well when he's in the truck.
2 fingers.
Yeah, when he's in the truck with her later, like he starts like saying, "Oh, you told me this about your like your first crush, or your brother, or whoever it was," and she's like, "Oh, I didn't tell you that. I bet I was lying." But it's one of these things where he's starting to use information she's told him to try and convince them, "Hey, we've grown closer than what you're treating me right now." But she doesn't remember any of it, and I like that stuff.
I like that she's not having it. Like, she's telling him no, and I was thinking about this before, because we sort of brought it up, but I don't know if it got cut out or not, because it got a little spoilery. but I like that she has her own version of Rita in her timeline. Like, she explains that there was somebody that she had to watch die like 300 times, and she got close to him because of that. And she knows that because Tom Cruise is doing this with her, I should keep saying Tom Cruise, because Cage is doing this with her, like, that's going to happen to him. And she keeps putting the wall up, like, every time, like, nope, you're not going to happen. Like, and even though this is like the one thing that they can like relate to, you know, like, there's no one else in the universe has had the same experience except for these 2 people.
Yeah, no, that stuff I like. I wish it didn't go to a kiss. I wish it didn't.
That was improvised by Emily Blunt.
Oh yeah, I bet John Krasinski loved hearing that out. Oh, I was an improv in the set. She just felt like kissing Tom Cruise. Apparently she thought that this is something that her character would do, and it was a surprise to everybody. But they kept it, and you know, I really like it. Like, the more I think about it, the more I like it, because like, who wouldn't be seduced by like the perfect day, you know? Like, if everything was going just, I mean, it is also like not a goodbye kiss, but like a death kiss. Yeah, I mean, no, she thinks they're both about to die, so I mean, there is that. But I wish it didn't happen, though, and it's not necessarily because it doesn't make some amount of sense. Like, I get what you're saying. I get why, like, the emotions are high. They're both about to die. You know, it's not even necessarily a romantic kiss. You could almost argue it away as, well, we're going to die, so I might as well kiss you, kind of thing, right? It's just, I hate the moment, but I don't care, because it feels like a cliche. Like, the moment feels forced to me, and it feels like a movie.
It feels right to me. I don't know. I really do like it.
I kind of hate the kiss, and like, the other thing that I don't like about the third act of the movie, we're kind of skipping ahead here, but it's your fault, so we'll just go with it. Is I wish they gave a bit more time to the squad they kind of recruit in the third act to go with them to help with this mission, because I felt like that's the one sort of misstep that I think would really improve. I mean, I like there's a lot of stuff at the end I like, and I'll get to that when we get there naturally, but the squad, like, I felt like and it's not a lot, I feel like all we need is like earlier on in the movie when he's maybe in that first kind of like, you know, batch of repeats, right? is set up the idea that there's maybe one of them who's a bit nicer to him, set up that the one who's angry with him is maybe a bit more of a bully and a bit more of a dick to him, maybe have him confront him maybe once more, so there's like a rule of three and it's the third time, because eventually the guy who's angry at him comes up saying, hey, you got us all those push-ups today, and he kind of convinces him that he knows stuff, and that leads to them recruiting everyone, right? I wish that was like the third time as opposed to just the second time, because it felt like, see if it really felt like he was turning this dickhead around, and it felt like there was someone else who kind of trusted him, and there was, or not even trust him, just someone who was nicer to him. There's enough that I felt like I knew who this like small crew of like 5 people were, because as it is in the movie, they're kind of just red shirts. I
mean, maybe they all seem kind of like a little tropey. They remind me a lot of like the Aliens crew members, but maybe a bit more campy.
I'm okay with tropey. I'm not saying make them like, I don't think there's time to give them deep arcs or anything like that. I just mean make them memorable enough that I know which one's dying as they're dying. Like,
but they all have a shtick. Like there's the tanky guy who doesn't wear clothes. There's the Aussie guy who's angry. There's like the chick
with a thick accent. She's got a very thick like Southern American accent.
Yeah. There's it's the important ones anyway, the ones that we really know. There's the one that doesn't really talk except for when he sees Angel Verdun, and there's like the younger one.
Yeah, you're doing such a great job. No, that's my point though. Like, you're struggling because they're not that memorable.
Well, I mean, the point of their characters is that they're the boots on the ground. They're the infantry. They're the guys who like make up their own uniform because they've done this so many times. Or whatever.
So what? This is irrelevant.
Well, yeah. Okay. So let me finish.
Okay.
Give me time here.
Okay. I'm not here.
Tom Cruise first gets there, and he's shown like he's super intimidated by all these people, even though he was he's the PR guy. He's the one who could talk into anything and sell anything, but he can't like get these people to respect him at all. Mm-hmm. He's the one like he walks in on the first day of school and is just bullied and kicked around, stuffed in a locker, and eventually killed, and nobody cares. Like nobody gives, two craps about it anyway. But by the time like the third act starts and he has to go to these people, like he has now become so he's so salty and weathered from and experienced from all the the cheat code that he has in order to be able to live all these extra lives to do it, that he naturally becomes a leader of these people. He walks in and they don't just like do what he says. They respect him. Like they know he's a leader. They know that he gets in the mech suit and he owns it. He knows how to do everything. And I like that turnaround from these characters. And yeah, they all sacrifice themselves or whatever for his cause, and they jump on it kind of immediately, but they all know that tomorrow is a suicide mission for them anyway. So what does it matter if it's a suicide mission on the beach or a suicide mission for something else that will actually make a difference in the war?
No, I agree with everything you said there. That is that is Tom Cruise's character arc. That is the whole point of the movie, is that he kind of becomes the person.
That's the reason why they're all there. And
that's the reason why. That's the reason why they're there. But it would be more effective if I actually remembered who any of them were. If I actually remembered who they were. So see, when they actually decided to stick up for him and go with them on this mission, that it felt like a bigger deal because I actually could remember any of their names or more than two of their faces. I don't think you need to know
their names. I just think you need to know what their shtick was.
Like there's other movies of this type where the main character has to inspire the people around them. This is a weird comparison, but The Sandlot, right? That has definitely got a main character, and the rest are kind of there, and they get more time than these characters. And I don't think these characters need a ton more time. I'm not saying I want subplots with every single of this squad team, but just enough to like that's why I'm saying like make the asshole a bit more asshole-ish towards them a couple more times. Give us one who's a bit more sympathetic towards Cage, so that it means something when all of them agree to help him. It would just have more impact. It would have more impact to me. Ultimately, I don't care. Like, I don't care when they die at the end because I barely know them, and I don't care that they're back at the end when everything gets reset because I barely know them. Like, I get them, and this is why it's frustrating to me, because I know what it's going for here in terms of the feeling, what it wants me to feel by being like, yeah, all those people who have small roles but are memorable.
I mean, I know what you're talking about because I've seen that in other movies before. Like, I think the first Avenger has that one, the first Avenger, the Captain America, the first Avenger, not the first Avengers movie, or like with that ragtag team that he has together, or even the Wonder Woman movie, which is kind of the same movie as the first Avenger, but they also kind of have that crew together and they feel like the same, that type of characters to me. But these, I think, do get a little bit more without it dragging down the film.
You've done this to me again. Every time I have some critique, you fight me on it so much that it sounds like I'm ragging on the whole movie.
Because I love this film. I think this movie's perfect.
I'm not allowed to critique it.
I'm supposed to fight you. My job is to defend it to its core.
But I'm not. The movie's still really good. I'm saying there's one thing. Well, there's two things. I take out the stupid kiss.
No,
but
I'm just saying why those things like they don't bother me, and I don't think they are an issue. But
that's an issue for me. I think the third act would be way better because I think the third act for the most part is the weakest part of the movie. The actual sort of fly into the Louvre to go find the thing when they find out that's where it is, because we find out that the actual luring them in with the visions was actually a trap. They were just using the visions to sort of lure them in so they could kill them and get their goo back, essentially. But the actual flight into the Louvre at the end, it's just kind of a generic action sequence, and that's kind of my biggest problem. Because it's a generic action sequence, some generic like red shirts die, and then the generic like, because the one moment that really conflicts me, and even this time watching it, even knowing that was coming, is the moment where Tom Cruise has his big heroic moment where he unpins all the grenades and he throws it into the orb thing that's creating the day thingamajig, and it's worth it. And it's worth mentioning that at this point in the movie, the day resetting thing for him is turned off. He's not got it anymore. So there's some stakes at the end because he could actually die for real. So he's actually kind of being brave, accepting all these suicidal missions at the end because he's grown into that character, right? And we've skipped over some of the arc and we'll talk about those scenes in the middle. But the moment that makes me roll my eyes a little bit, even now, even though I like what comes after it, and I would hate to lose what comes after it, is the moment where after he's like, as the things like getting destroyed, the goo kind of like sort of envelops Tom Cruise, because I remember watching it the first time and rolling my eyes going, oh, and everything's going to be fine because like he's not actually sacrificed, everything's fine now because the magic goo is going to fix everything because it's enveloped him. And even though I love what comes after, because maybe even my favorite scene of this entire movie, because I think it uses its premise to tell the story in a way that I've never seen done, is that instead of what happens throughout the whole movie, because the aliens have just been defeated now because their time warpy devices went to shit and now they can't fight, so they're just dropping dead and they're losing. Like we have a scene where Tom Cruise walks back onto the camp in which he was, he woke up in handcuffs. We see him do that multiple times where he was yelled at by multiple people. He was treated like a traitor, and arguably deservedly so. And he walks onto that base with his held head high, with his hat on, his full uniform on, and the people that he walks past as he's going to see Rita stand and salute him and give him the respect. And what's so beautiful about this scene is that they don't know that he was really a coward, and then he overcame that and then earned the respect. We know that. We know he earns these salutes that he's getting. We know he's earned them.
He doesn't get any credit for stopping the war.
But at the same time, he's getting respect he's actually earned now, even though no one knows that he actually spent that time earning it. And it's a really satisfying scene because it uses the movie's premise to give us a unique setup for this and a unique payoff that you can only get with this premise, with this time repeating premise. So I love that scene. But even though I knew that was coming, and that can only come because of it, I still roll my eyes this time when it's just, the magic goo is just bringing them in. And like, so if I have a problem with this movie, it's essentially, I love the theory of them inspiring the crew around them to become a little team to go on this suicidal mission. I just wish I cared about them more. But from that to when he actually wakes up, when the final reset happens, to go further back than he has before. And my theory on that, by the way, is that the reason why he goes back further... What? What was that?
Oh, I was going to say because it kind of sets up a sequel.
Oh, no. What I was going to say is that my theory on why he goes back further than he has done, because every time he's reset, he's woken up in the camp, right? He woke up at that point.
This one, he wakes up before he even goes to
he wakes up in the helicopter.
The camp. Yeah.
My theory in that is that that's when the machine was turned on, the orb.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why, because he goes back to when it was first turned on, and that's why he goes back further. So that's cool. So there's a lot.
Except there is no mother orb thing anymore, so everything just
Yeah. So
they win.
I love that stuff. I will I will give this movie as much praise as I can for the stuff that I think it does well and is inventive with,
Yeah.
and how
I love the RoboCop ending. Cut to credit.
and how it uses its premise. Because the end of the movie is he walks back in, and Rita, like that she did the first time, says, "What are you looking at?" Or what's something on my face? Yeah, grunt.
Yeah.
And he just kind of smiles because she's her again.
Yeah.
And he cuts to black. No, ending's fine. Like see if he, I don't know. It's like I was almost worried. I think the first time I watched this, because the solution to get here was so generic and cheesy, that I was worried that when he walked in that she's going to be like, oh, because you destroyed the orb, I remember too, or something like that, and they were going to have some heartfelt
they don't
thing.
do that. They stick to the rules.
No, I agree. No, I appreciate that. I really do. So as much as I'm calling it out in some generic Hollywoody things that I don't like, don't mistake that for me not liking this movie, because I think it does a lot of really smart stuff with its premise, and a lot of stuff that I think doesn't feel like it's just taking the easy Hollywood way out, which I do think some of the other stuff is, which is why I'm going to criticize it for not building up a few of those minor characters to be a little bit more valuable, I guess, by the time we get to that third act. There you go.
Okay. They are a bit cartoony, but and maybe if they were a bit more grounded, they would have more impact. But for their sacrifice,
it's like you don't even listen to me. They don't even need to be grounded. The cartoony is fine. They just need to be more memorable. Just be more memorable.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
I really just didn't have that issue at all. Yeah, I don't get emotional when they sacrifice themselves, but maybe it's because I've seen them sacrifice themselves so many times before. I do feel the tension in that final act because I know that they can't reset anymore. That I feel the tension for them. When I went and saw the movie, like I legitimately thought that they're probably not going to make it out of this film, until
you're such an easy movie watcher. People Hollywood writers love you.
That's why I enjoy movies so much.
They're just rubbing their face. Oh, she's going to buy into everything we're going to set up in this script. She's never going to see the twist coming.
There was a chance that they weren't going to make it out, that they were going to sacrifice themselves.
I can't remember what I felt. I remember
you watch Emily Blunt die, like, for the final time.
Yeah, we do. It was I guess not. I think, Joe, what it was, I think this is not me trying to sound smarmy because I think I'm smart or whatever, but I think
we all think you're smarmy. It's okay.
But I think in the back of my head the whole time, because of how these movies work with these types of premise, because we had him wake up in that helicopter at the start of the movie and they hadn't used that yet, I knew they had like their weird back door to have everything go back. Like I don't know, like it felt like they shot that scene the way they did at the start of the movie for a reason.
Okay.
This is not about them setting up plot. This is about like the technique they used and the way they shot him waking up. It felt like that was very memorable, because it was going to be seen again later. And I think the first time I saw it, I kind of was expecting them to eventually go back. I didn't necessarily know it was going to be the ending. It turned out to be the ending. But
play a little Sonny and Cher song.
Because in fact, I think the first time he get killed, so when he gets killed the first time and the goo like drops on his face, I think the first time I saw it, I was expecting him to wake up in the helicopter, because that's where the movie started. But he didn't. He woke up
not being kicked by some other sergeant guy.
Yeah.
On your feet, Private.
I maggot was the what he called him repeatedly, if I recall. So I think because I was expecting him to wake up in the helicopter the first time and then he didn't, I think that was in the back of my head the whole time, that they have this extra wake up moment. So, and that's me being a bit, I don't know, like thinking like someone who like thinks about how movies are made as opposed to thinking about the plot that's been presented to me, if that makes sense. Like I'm kind of like thinking about, oh, they've set that's there so they can use it, like I'm like, rather than just what they've presented me with. But
it must be so horrible to watch movies.
Oh my god.
For you. Such torture.
What would you like to talk about that time?
Do you want to talk about the farmhouse scene?
We talk about the farmhouse scene, yeah. Because that's kind of when they're trying to make their way to the location, because there's a big sort of point here for Cruz or for Cage, sorry, after she gets killed again, because this is the moment where as she's dying, she has like a last word where because in the way they're in the car, he was trying to get her to tell him his middle name. And as she's dying, she says, "Oh, what the hell? Like, here's my middle name," and it's kind of a sweet moment. And he makes this choice after this to not go and see her the next day and just do it on his own. So he tries to go on his own, and that's when he finds out it was a trap, and that's why afterwards he goes back to her.
Well, first he goes
him.
and he gets drunk in a bar. He says, "You know what? I'm not going to fight today." He just escapes, goes to a bar in London, gets drunk, but listens to a bunch of old guys talk about how they would fight the war or whatever.
Yeah, and they call him they call him a coward.
He sees like all the squib things like come up the river and take over.
Sure, but more importantly though, they call him a coward, which I think, even though he's been called that earlier on in the movie, like multiple times, I think it hurts him here more because he's actually went through a lot of shit at this point, and he's like, hey, at this point, like, how dare you? So I think this is the moment where he decides he's really going to try and see it through, and this is a big turning point for his character.
Well, I think it's also that on top of the fact that he's been to this barn many times before. In every scenario, Emily Blunt dies. I think the reason he goes off on his own is because he's at a natural block. Like, he can't get past this part without her dying. So, that's why he goes to drink after that.
Just to add on to that though, I don't think it's just that he's hit a block. I think it's actually the pain of watching her die. Like, he needs a drink, basically. He needs a break from it.
Well, also, like, this is the moment where they share, like, he's just trying to get her to stay, like, just stay here. Why don't we just do the scenario where you live?
Yeah,
you don't follow me anymore.
Yeah, we see.
And she knows, she has that realization, like, let me finish.
I'm trying to agree with you.
Make fun of me because I talk over you, but it's because you're trying to interrupt me all the time. You go for like minutes on your points. Let me have a few seconds. Christ.
Please continue.
Thank you. This is one of those scenarios where she knows what he's going through. She knows that he's in love with her because he's watched her die so many times, because she's also experienced that with somebody else before. That's why she puts up a wall and says, I'm not going to stay here. Like, there's no reason why she shouldn't just say, okay, fine, I'll live and you try to make it on your own. We'll just try this scenario out. But it's because she doesn't want it. Like, she doesn't want him to see her this way. And she gets frustrated or upset about it and just takes off anyway, even though she knows she's not going to make it. And she's, the helicopter crashes, just like Tom Cruise predicted. She's dying and she says, my middle name is Rose. Because it's also one of those moments where she's like, I know you're in love with me. Here's a thing that I can tell you. And it's not just because she's dying there, because that doesn't matter to her, because she knows whatever is going to reset. She gives him something, something to hold on to.
Oh, you're done. Okay.
You may speak.
Well, what I was going to add in is that, yes, we get the sense that this is starting to bother him before this death, because we see that he's desperately trying to not go through with the plan. He's trying to stall, and he kind of slips up when he kind of like knows what she takes in her coffee, because she's thinking this is the first time that they've gotten to the barn, and he can't find these keys for the helicopter, but he has found the keys. So we get the hints that he is starting to really bother him, that he just doesn't want to see her die anymore, and I really appreciated that, which is why I'm saying that when he goes to the bar, I think it's not just so much that there's a block, it's just about, this is really starting to weigh on him, that he's seeing this person die every single day. It's like too much for him to take. So even though there is a kind of like a hardship, there's like a hurdle here that he's having trouble getting over, and he does get the motivation to go back out and kind of like do it himself, which is what he does next, but I do think it's kind of the weight of this, just like this impossible, like seeing this person die over and over again. So, but obviously once he realizes it was a trap and he just narrowly escapes, by the way, he dies this way when he fights the monsters on his own, and, well, I say fights, he sort of runs and tries to get away, because the monsters don't want him to die, because they know if he dies it'll reset.
They know that they'll just reset. Yeah.
So he actually has to duck, and he sort of like, it's a kind of, I don't know if it's intentional per se, he just sort of ducks down this little crack, but he kind of like unintentionally gets them to drown him. So he actually dies via drowning, which is probably maybe the worst death he's had, because drowning's
brutal.
Yeah, not the air death is pleasant, but a lot of them are a lot more instant than this. And
because I guess they're trying to get him to bleed out, because they cut him and he starts bleeding. And I guess if he bleeds out, all of the goo that's in him, then maybe that's enough to stop the time without him dying. Or if he dies, like, but enough of the goo is out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was.
They do cut him and watch him bleed, but they don't kill him.
Yeah, that was kind of maybe that was just them double checking that he had it in him or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah. He drowns, and it's actually I don't know where it is about in the movie where he actually takes his training seriously. Because one of the shots that kind of annoyed me a little bit is when Emily Blunt kind of walks in and sees him training, and he's actually really good now. He's like, he's obviously clearly been doing this day after day for a while because he's motivated now. This might be before they go to the farmhouse, or maybe after. I can't remember exactly which part this takes place at, but this was one of the moments where the look in her face felt like a cheat to me, because it was like, I mean, you can read it as, okay, she's just sort of seen how determined he is, and she's kind of picking up that, oh, okay, he's been doing this for a lot of days, like he's been doing this for a long time, he looks so determined, like this was like day 200 for me. So I can kind of recognize that. You can argue that. I feel like the scene kind of plays weird for me because it feels like it almost wants you to realize, like, her to know like how much of a change he's made, but she can't know how much of a change he's made because to her the version she met this day is the version that we're seeing right now. Like he's that's all he's been to her.
Maybe she's just impressed by him. Hey, you know what you're doing.
Did you enjoy the?
I think you're ready for the real thing.
Did you enjoy the montage at the start of the training where when he gets like beat up by the robots and he's kind of like paralyzed or gets his leg broken?
Yeah.
Like, there's any excuse, she's like, well, there's no point in continuing. We'll just reset, and she just takes out a gun and shoots him. And there's the one that made me laugh is when he's like crawling up. He's like, no, my leg's fine. Like I can still feel it. No, and then she just shoots him.
Yeah,
right
he
away.
clearly hates dying.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the thing when he's doing the whole coffee thing in the farmhouse. He's like, whoa, let's not reset. Why don't we take just 5 minutes to enjoy a cup of coffee before we kill ourselves? Maybe just take a rest before we reset.
I like her confusion. Like, okay, take a break.
Yeah, she's not understanding that. Yeah, that stuff's pretty funny. A lot of the humor does help give it a bit of life. It's not just this, because it could be a very easily kind of grim movie where it's just kind of oppressive because it's just death after death. I think giving it some levity was a smart move.
And getting Tom Cruise to star in it, I think, is a smart move.
Sure.
He's just so likable. I mean, unless you watch the Going Clear Scientology documentary.
Yeah, real life
then
Tom
you're
Cruise.
Like, oh, he might be a monster.
Yeah, maybe less so. I mean, Katie Holmes is just in The Boy too. I mean, she's never recovered from that marriage.
No.
Personally,
Nicole Kidman in Big Little Lies season 2, I'm pretty sure was channeling some things. There was something else I really liked for and Emily Blunt's character, or like one of the things she says, I don't know if she says it like before or after the kiss, but she says like, I wish I would have gotten to know you better or something, which is kind of a funny line for her to say like right at the end of the film. Just because, obviously he knows her so well. And we kind of, as an audience, see them have this whole relationship that crosses so many probably years. For her for that to be her like final line to him, I thought was a pretty, I don't know, I thought it was a well written line.
I think it's Joe. That makes me kind of want it almost makes me want to completely change the movie and have her be the main character, right? And I'm not saying
that's our sequel.
Is that a sequel?
Maybe that's our sequel.
Oh, no.
Full Metal Bitch movie.
Let me explain. I want him to still be the one who's repeating, but I want her to be the main character.
We just see the perfect day follow through completely.
No. We still have to repeat the day, but like we follow from her perspective, because I think if you want to sell me on like this drama that's going through her head of like, because she's remembered going through this, that's why she understands and maybe relates in certain ways, and maybe take some leaps in her like logic that otherwise you wouldn't be able to take. Like, I feel like having her kind of recognize these small moments, like, because in my head as you were talking, making that last point, I was thinking, oh, maybe you could like make this like an even better movie by like giving her an equal share of the screen time, like have some of it be from her perspective instead of just all Tom Cruise, right? And then I thought, what if you made it what if you did a movie where the day was resetting but you didn't know why, right? And you see this crazy Tom Cruise sort of come in and like talk to her a couple of times, and it's not until he actually says to her, you told me to come find you, and then she explains what he's going through, you go, oh, You know, you can almost treat it like a mystery at first. Like, why is the day reset, and why are we seeing these different versions of the day, and have it all come from her perspective? I like this movie idea. I'm not saying that this will be better than this, but
I don't know if it would be better, but
I think it would be equally a valid avenue to take this premise.
sure. I mean, we've had this repeating film premise now for a little while, so maybe to spice things up after this genre gets played out.
Yeah, I'm thinking about there's so much drama to take from her.
Do you want it to be like a Memento style or something, where
No, I'm not saying go back.
you're constantly like, okay, how did we get here?
For the record,
what just happened?
I'm not trying.
Backtrack.
This isn't me trying to like fix it. Like, the movie's great. I'm just sort of like theorizing about this because, like, I think there's a couple of moments from her that feel like a safe force, because it feels like the audience, they're playing upon the fact that the audience knows what's going on here and that we remember everything, so it plays kind of weird to us, I think, or they're going for something, but it's really that for her. Really, all I'm saying is maybe giving her a little bit more of her own screen time might have helped that and let us get into her head a little bit and really kind of like flesh that out. But it just made me think about this opposite side of the movie. Maybe this could be a fun way of, like, you know, like, I mean, you couldn't do this as a sequel because it would just be like stuff we all know anyway. But like, it got me thinking. I was just, you know, spitballing.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you think the sequel is going to be?
Well, it has to be.
I mean, he gets more of the goo on him, so it could just be another repeat. Like, maybe he lives his whole life and then dies, and then has a chance to relive his whole life again from that moment. I mean, how far does it go? Like, can he keep going?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because there's no war, so it's not like he's getting killed every day, so you wouldn't know that he's repeating until I don't know. I mean, Happy Death Day did this thing where it ended up being the same day again, which was really funny when you realized, oh wait, it's the same day as the first movie.
So
oh well,
I don't know.
well, that was the premise. It wasn't the only part of the premise. There was more to it than that. But it was like, no, it's still the same day. Like all those times she woke up in the first movie, when she sort of starts doing it again, the second one, it's not a new day she's repeating. She's repeating that same day again, and she's livid about it. Like, she is pissed. Like, so you could go that route where he's back to this day somehow for some reason, but obviously make it, you know, to do something funky with it. That would be the hardest thing to do with no Paxton, though. You'd have to recast Paxton's role if you were doing that.
Well, yeah, I heard he was supposed to be in it. You know, he was always, because they started the sequel, or started talking about the sequel right away after the film. And
I wonder.
Yeah, fortunately, he passed.
I wonder, like, maybe they don't do it exactly repeating. Maybe the second one's just straight up time travel. Like, maybe they travel back in time to this day, so the day repeating's happening, but they're kind of like experience it as third parties. Like, that could be some route to take. Obviously, the most obvious thing is just the aliens come back. He starts repeating a day again for whatever reason. And it's just a new solution or a new problem day to solve in a new war. But I do wonder if they try to play with the timeline a little bit and either have them go back to that same day, either because he repeats that same day again, or because they're back in time and sort of there as third parties during that same day.
Well, if he dies, wouldn't he just go back to when he killed the Omega thing? Because that's when he gets the goo.
Assuming he still has the repeating thing in him and it doesn't happen again.
Okay. Maybe he gets a blood transfusion. Yeah, who knows? Maybe they try to militarize the blood transfusion that he gets. They hold on to it, start cloning it. And then all of a sudden, what happens if more than one person can repeat the same day?
Oh, actually, here's a good idea. What if the villains are aliens?
Thank you.
What? No, I said here's a good. I was going to say, well, my next idea that I'm about to tell you is good. Although you inspired it, so take some points. No, what if the villains? What if the villains in the second movie aren't aliens? What if this goo has been has been someone's found a way to make it, right? And there's like an evil organization who are repeating days, and they call in Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt because they've got experience with it to take some of their own goo so they can like fight repeating days with repeating days. So the villains are also repeating, but it's other humans.
What if it's the doctor from this movie who says, okay, you don't want to have that goo in you anymore because everything's fine, we're at peace. And he takes the goo out of him, but he holds on to it and he clones it and he gets more and more goo. And then it's not until like Emily Blunt and Tom Cruise are like happily ever after, whatever, where they start to see things on the news that seems like it would only be possible if somebody was resetting the day. So they know something's going on, and they go back to the doctor.
I hope it's the happily ever after. I hope they're platonic. I really do. But I do. No, that's okay. I think the key thing here between the idea I just said and the idea you just said is that I think one of the key things to make it feel different in the sequel, no matter what they're doing, is that whether it's just him or both of them that are going to repeat days, I think they have to make the choice to do it rather than it happen by accident. I think it has to be, whether it's because they're asked to by the government because there's bad guys doing this or aliens doing this, or whether or not because they notice things are wrong and they make a way of getting to it themselves. Whatever it may be, I think the idea of them being proactive and making the choice to go into the loop is more interesting, because it means they're saying, hey, we've done this before, we have experience, we can use this to our advantage and play with it because we've already done it before. And that would give the premise enough of a difference to the first movie to make it feel fresh immediately, because the characters are proactively making the choice to do it. And then we can go from, whatever the day might be from there, whether it's the same day as this one, or, and the fact that they wanted Paxton back and they wanted presumably the rest of the cast back, maybe it lends credence to the fact that it could be the same day, or maybe it's just that no, he gets them all back again later because he needs a team, and they wouldn't remember trusting him, so that wouldn't even make sense. But,
no, but yeah. I mean, we know that he's a PR guy and he knows how to talk to people, and he certainly knows enough about them to probably convince them to do stuff. So, well,
there you go. That's some theorizing. I was trying to say for the sequel, which I don't know if we've got like a time frame for that yet. Let's see if IMDb.
Well, this was 2014, so I mean, I guess it's been in the works for a little while.
2022 is what IMDb's got it at.
Oh.
Yeah, when the first one was
later than I thought.
Well, yeah, when the first one was irrelevant now, because it's got nothing to do with how long it's been since the first one. It's just like when they started doing it, because it wasn't like something they put in production straight away. I mean, Warner Brothers. I'm not even sure how they got convinced. I mean, I guess Tom Cruise showed up and said, hey, I'll do your other thing that you want me to do if you make me a sequel to Edge of Tomorrow.
Maybe. I mean, I think this movie was a hit overseas, like international.
Was it? I don't know.
It had to have been, right? Because I think it made like $500 million.
I don't think it did that much. Hold on, let me check.
Did it make like 500 million?
Oh, Tenero. This is what happens when I'm dodging a bottle of water as I'm typing. Edge F Tomorrow. Edge F Tomorrow. That's what I just typed. God damn it. Right, there we go. I have typed the title. I'm on Box Office Mojo. It made 370 million worldwide, which is right at that amount where it's like, oh, that's not a bomb, but it's also not a guaranteed sequel either. It's for a movie of this size, with like, because this movie had like a $178 million budget. Currently Box Office Mojo. So 370 million, that's kind of similar to the first Pacific Rim, which was equally like, oh, okay, it didn't do terribly, but like it only got a sequel because some people really willed it into existence and because it did pretty decently in China. I think this is looks like the same kind of thing where it didn't do that great. Like it did okay for a movie of its size. So it's surprising that sequel's happening, which is why I assume that Tom Cruise, basically, threw his weight around a little bit because maybe he wants to make a sequel. He wants to do another one. That would be my guess.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe he took a pay cut.Maybe he's like, hey, you can just pay me $10 million for this one. Well, I think we're done with Edge of Tomorrow. It's a really good movie. I think it's a summer kind of blockbustery sci-fi action movie. It's got a strong character arc, which I think is the best thing it's got going for it, is how good that arc is. It's got likable characters in the main two. It's got it's just got some fun ways that it plays with its premise. I do think there's a couple of generic sort of like Hollywoody tropes, especially towards the end, and I do wish I cared more about those other characters, and Tower's rolling their eyes at me, but those are my complaints. Okay. I don't think it's perfect. I think it's a really good, solid movie that deserves to do better than it did. But it's not.
Hey, we're getting a sequel.
Yeah, we're getting a sequel.
We get more.
So we'll see how that shapes up. I mean, and I'm not convinced the sequel will be good because Doug Liman's not a surefire success. Like this is easily the best movie I think he's made, and we'll see if we can repeat that success. But yeah, go and laugh. Yeah, repeat the success. How funny I am.
One thing I do really like about this,
yes.
The kind of meta thing is that he has to film the same scene over and over again, and each time he gets a little bit better at filming that scene.
What are you rating Edge of Tomorrow out of 10?
it's a 10. I love this movie. I think it's perfect, and I don't care. Like, maybe I'll consider the fact that there are some things that doesn't work for everybody or don't work for everybody, but they all work for me. Every time I watch the movie, it climbs up my ladder of favorite films, and I think this movie is fun. I love that, apart from the aliens, like, there's really not a lot of CGI, maybe some environmental stuff. Like, all the suits they wear are real, and you can tell that they're heavy and cumbersome, and it really slows people down. And I think the movie is fun. I think the movie is tense. I think the movie is a great war movie on top of a great sci-fi movie. And yeah, the character arcs and the deeper layers that are in it, I think, are great. The very so subtle love story that's in there, that is not the central part of the movie, but it is an important part that I still really like in it. I love this movie.
Well, yeah, no, the movie is really good. I don't think it's perfect, though. I do have some, it's not even so much that I have like hard problems with it. It's more just that there's definitely things that I can see improvements, potential improvements in as I'm watching. There's just some things that could just iron it out to make it like a truly great movie. But as it is, it's very, very good. And I just kind of glossed over a scene actually that I thought was really funny when they go back to Brendan Gleeson to try and convince him to hand over this doohickey that the scientist built, and he actually thinks he's somehow convinced him, because he knows what's in the safe. He tells him about what's coming in the radio and what the secretary's going to say and everything else, and they think they've convinced them because they let them walk out. But as soon as they step out the building, there's like a SWAT team of like or soldiers or whatever ready for them. Like, even in that situation, Brendan Gleeson still wasn't buying it. Fun stuff. Anyway, I'm going with an 8. So 8 out of 10. Which is what I gave it at the time, and watching it again has kind of just confirmed that rating for me. It's a really good movie, if not a little bit great, but does kind of just have a few things that I would improve upon, and a few little things that feel a little bit generic to me. But there's a lot of good inventive stuff in there, and that's the stuff I appreciate. I love, and I say that's a lot about horror movies, where they have a mechanic or a premise that they can then use to extrapolate unique setups and unique scene encounters between characters that you don't get in normal stories, because you can't without this, in this case, this day repeating mechanic. In something else it might be something different, like in It Follows, it might be this idea of like waiting for something to come get you. That's a mechanic, or whatever. Like, I always talk about mechanics in movies to create interesting things, and that is kind of what this movie has going for it, and it uses that for a great character arc. It uses that mechanic to tell its story. It doesn't, at least for the most part, kind of reduce itself to doing cheap things to tell that story, which is why I like it. That's where the strength of the movie comes from. So 8 out of 10 from me. So it's stayed consistent, because that's what I gave it in 2014. So what I'm giving it in 2020. So there you go.
Okay.
Edge of Tomorrow is
controversial opinion.
Do you think my 8 is controversial?
Yes.
I feel like
but I will admit that this movie is definitely my kind of film.
Oh sure. I think you'll find that even people who really like this movie might find your 10 more controversial than my 8. 10's a pretty serious score.
And we all have our favorites. My favorite list of films I think it is very different from a lot of people's. A lot of people will be like, really, that one?
Yeah, that'd be a problem with you loving this or giving it a 10. Alright, that has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. That has been our discussion of Edge of Tomorrow, aka Live Die Repeat, aka All You Need Is Kill, aka Tom Cruise Runs From Things 14. So thank you very much for joining us. You can, of course, let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at @mailed_fuzz for channel updates. You can, of course, support the show by rating the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars and a review. Helps us out a lot. More people will find us that way. And you can, of course, support us on Patreon, as we mentioned earlier.
We also review the classic episodes of The Twilight Zone. We're on to season 2 now. Mm-hmm. Which is a big deal, because that means we went through like 50 episodes or something in season 1. So we've committed. So you can check out, if you like sci-fi and you like Twilight Zone or want a reason to watch them again, you can watch them along with us.
Now, everyone at home, give it up for Tara. She's a wonderful co-host, and she puts up with my shit. So everyone give her props for said shit. And
I do have to do that.
if I beg enough, maybe she'll come back next week and we can do our next movie, which is the Patreon winner for the month, and that was Fantastic Voyage. So you can find that next time. So next time we're shrinking down to that.
We're becoming Tom Cruise actual size.
We're going to become little tiny little people, and I don't know. I have to think of a way to make a joke out of that. Do you know what? I've got an idea. Based on my recent Invisible Man antics with Tim on streams, where we started the show with us being invisible, because I thought that'd be funny. I've got an idea. So thank you very much for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction movies, guys. And computer, that's Salsa.
If I got something on my face.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I'm Peter, and I'm joined by Tara.
Greetings, citizens.